his being distracted at a time where the company is at this kind of pivotal crossroads. He put it on a path, a kind of a bet the company path with this change to robotics, and you need a CEO who's there driving that. And clearly Musk was under pressure to return to the day-to-day.
Hi, I'm Maddie, Hale, and welcome to the Tech Report. Today I've had Tim Higgins from the Wall Street Journal on the program. We've spoken all about Tesla's Q2 results, Elon Musk's response, what's he going to do as shareholders putting pressure on him, all that today on the Tech Report. Tim Higgins from the Wall Street Journal, thank you so much for joining the Tech Report.
Oh, thank you.
Well, we'll go straight into the Tesla Q2 results released on Wednesday, showing the revenue is $22.5 billion, down 12% from the year before. It is the company's steepest revenue drop in over a decade. So can you walk me through this?
Yeah, a rough quarter. We knew it was going to be a rough quarter going in because deliveries, which were released a few weeks earlier, had just really fallen off a cliff. In part because of all the politicalization around the brand, because of Elon Musk's foray into U.S. politics in the past year, but also really issues because of core Tesla issues, which is they don't have essentially a new product. They have the Cybertruck, which is a niche vehicle, but they don't have new lineup to really compete out there. Also, they're facing dramatic competition in China and a weakening interest in electric vehicles in the U.S. just because of the overall politicalization of that kind of technology. So a rough environment to be in, and then all of these distractions. So we knew it was going to be bad going in, but looking forward, it's even worse. And that's, I think, why you're seeing the stock drop dramatically in the hours and the day afterwards, is the market digests that and listens to kind of Elon Musk's mood when he talks to analysts and he talks to Wall Street. That's a troubling sign.
Was this what analysts were predicting, Tim? Were they predicting that it would be this bad?
Roughly in line. The various whisper numbers, maybe a little bit worse according to some, but according to FactSet numbers, the adjusted EPS was in line. Everybody knew it was going to be bad. And in some ways, going in, the second quarter results for a lot of investors probably didn't matter. It is a growth stock story. Investors were looking for signs of growth. And they've known for months, quarters now, that the core business, the business of selling cars, is troubled, right? But they are making the bet. The reason why Tesla is so valuable, why it is the world's most valuable car company, why it has had a market valuation of $1 trillion, the first car company to ever have that, is because of its future potential in robotics, future potential for autonomous cars. And so this is, in some ways, investors gambling on the future that Elon Musk has envisioned and is promising that he can deliver. The question is when. That's always the question with Musk. And the question is also of patience with investors. In a lot of ways, you have to give these investors a lot of credit. They have been very patient for the past couple of years as Musk has taken a lot of sojourns away from the core of Tesla's business of selling cars, whether it's buying Twitter and getting involved in X or getting involved in politics, his kind of fights over pay. There's been a lot of things at Tesla going on that have gotten kind of not about the core business of Tesla. And so they're being patient in this belief that robot taxis, robot cars are on the near precipice of kind of unlocking incredible value for Tesla and changing the world.
Well, the robo-taxi, it was rolled out in June in Austin, Tim. Did the Q2 results deliver anything on that? Did they show how they've been faring, even though it had only been a month or so? It's
really immaterial, those results, because we're talking about a handful of cars in a very small area in Austin, Texas. They've expanded it slightly. It's really going into that. The number one question for investors was essentially, what are you learning? What is Tesla learning from that? What kind of signs of potential are there? And Musk feeding some of that, talking about the potential growth there. We know that Tesla is looking at San Francisco. Musk has said that is an expansion point, Arizona, some other places. But the rate of that ability to do it is still a big question. Now, the technology that they're using for their robot cars should, in theory, be expandable, should be scalable in a rather quick way. The kind of the thesis about Tesla is the AI technology that they have adopted should allow for quick scalability. They have the manufacturing capability to roll out these robot cars. All the vehicles that they are selling have the cameras and everything that's needed. So it should be able to scale faster, in theory, than, say, Waymo, Alphabet's robot taxi service, which has been at this for a very long time and has business operations in a lot of U.S. cities. I'm in San Francisco. It is their vehicles are almost ubiquitous at this point, gobbling up a huge part of the ride-hailing business in this market. And they're in L.A., they're in Phoenix, they're going into Atlanta, they're in Austin, they're trying to get into Washington, D.C., they're doing early testing for New York City. They're very aggressive, and Musk is trying to catch up with them, essentially tell the market that Tesla is better positioned to become an actual business because it is a robot maker, and the kind of technology it has will allow for that. So that's kind of the thesis. That's the excitement. We got a little bit more taste of that. But the real challenge and the thing that is really roiling investors today as they digest it is some of his commentary about the bridge towards that future. It is not going to happen today. It's not going to happen tomorrow. And it's a little unclear when it's going to happen. And he is warning, and this is very unlike him, that Tesla is facing some rough quarters ahead. Likely in the third quarter, it will be, I think a lot of people think it'll be okay for Tesla and other EV makers because there's this rush of customers to take advantage of the final days of the U.S. Tax incentives to encourage the purchase of electric vehicles. The Trump administration is getting rid of those. Trump's one big beautiful bill gets rid of that that was signed into law at the end of the incentives go away at the end of September. So there's a rush out there to do that, and the effect for Tesla in the U.S. is the vehicles will essentially become much more expensive. On top of that, there are other regulatory credits that Tesla has traditionally benefited greatly from. Those are expected, the ability to benefit from them expected to go away dramatically as well. And so Musk is saying that transition for the company, transition from this very strong sales environment for electric cars to the autonomous vehicle world that he's predicting is going to be very rough. And just the idea that he's saying that the fourth quarter of this year, the first quarter of next year, potentially the second quarter of next year could be rough is a bad sign for the company.
Yeah, this response from Elon Musk, exactly right. He said he warned basically the next few quarters will be rough, but that there was long-term promise. So that's, of course, what he has to say in a more diplomatic sense and keep investors and keep shareholders and everyone on board and even visionaries on board with what he plans to do with the company. But Tim, how do you think he is actually feeling behind closed doors about this?
It's in a lot of ways, Tesla earning results every quarter have become less about the previous quarter's financial results and more about a vibe check on the state of Elon Musk. This is the rare opportunity for investors to hear from his mouth how he's doing. Now, we hear from him every day, every almost hour, it seems, on X, his social media platform, but it's an environment where he's being asked about the business of Tesla. And the tonality, his mood on that call, which is usually about an hour, has become super important. I can remember some calls in recent years where he has sounded depressed, or he has sounded sad, or he has sounded just not optimistic, and that has spooked the market. But when he comes on hot and is excited and selling the vision, that gets people very excited, right? One of the most powerful things that Tesla's had over the years is his ability to sell the vision for the future of the car, for the future of Tesla, to keep investors excited and also patient, right? Some of the things he's been doing it cannot be done overnight, right? The idea of moving people from gas-powered vehicles to electric-powered vehicles when the company was founded more than 2 decades ago was a rather radical idea, and he was able to kind of pull people into that future. And what he's doing now is making a dramatic change for Tesla, a huge pivot for the business of Tesla, and that is the idea that, yes, they make electric vehicles, but their future is in robotics of these vehicles. And he's trying to pull off essentially making Tesla essentially a startup within a proven company, which the history of that in business is littered with companies that have failed to do that. The bet here is that his kind of force of will, his founder mode, will enable that. And so to kind of ask how he is handling it, it would seem that he's excited about this potential, right? And these are the kinds of things that get him going. When people tell him not to do it or this isn't a good idea, he is full steam ahead on this idea of robotics, the future of Tesla, talking about how this has great potential, great value creation for the company. And it's kind of fitting for him what he does. A traditional CEO probably would be less aggressive, right? They would look at the business and say, we're making money from these cars, we should make more human-powered cars and tiptoe our way into this robotic future. He's not doing that. He's essentially he's not even waiting for the boats to get to the shore of the new promised land. He is essentially burning them when they see potential shore on the horizon. There is, at this point, hard to imagine going back. The product pipeline is heavily focused on robotics. Yes, they're bringing out a cheaper Model Y, which is their best-selling vehicle. But cheaper is not what the brand is about, right? That is not the future. The idea of moving just some more Model Ys to cheaper people. The people, the investors in this company, when they got into it for many years, were seeing Tesla as a premium vehicle that had high margins, that were the best cars out there. And now what Musk is doing is talking about how the margins and that profitability is going to come from the software of the autonomous vehicles and the service of the vehicles. And so he's all in at this point.
The vehicle deliveries as well, Tim, they were down 14% from the year before. Over 348,000 Teslas delivered to owners in this quarter, down from 446 this quarter this time last year. So is this because of slower demand, or is it because of production issue of getting this car from manufacturers to the owners?
This is about a demand issue. Now Musk would say, and he likes to say, that the issue is not that a lack of demand, but a lack of people being able to afford his vehicles, and that's why he's pushing to make the Model Y cheaper. But it is, if you look at the market, especially here in the U.S., there's clearly been some brand erosion among certain people because of his politicalization. His hard rightward turn in the past year has turned off Democrats, according to the data that I've seen. And I just, one of the most interesting figures that I saw this week were not Tesla's results, but new vehicle registrations out of the state of California came out for the second quarter, showing that Tesla had yet again seen a decline. This is a very good proxy for sales in California, which has traditionally been one of Tesla's most important markets, especially in the U.S. This is really the market that helped make Tesla what Tesla is. California buyers tend to be more democratic. They tend to be early adopters of green technology. They are, in some ways, all in on the idea of what Tesla was all about. And to see the continued erosion of market share and also unit sales in that market is really telling of the brand. It was not that long ago, a few years ago, where it looked like Tesla might become the number one car maker in that market. It was fighting tooth and nail to overtake Toyota. And Toyota has long been a strong brand in that market. But Toyota also is an interesting kind of case study as a competitor for Toyota. They have gone all in on the idea of hybrid vehicles where you have a gas and electric. And this is appealing to the U.S. market, where we've seen in other markets outside of the U.S. An adoption of the EVs, especially you think of places like China, where the government has really pushed for that. You're seeing in Europe as well. But Toyota made the gamble that in a lot of ways that the U.S. customer was going to kind of want a halfway measure, and that's paying off in places like California and the U.S. And really, in some ways, Tesla's biggest kind of threat to the future of the electric vehicle. So when we talk about all the pressures on Tesla, there's things like that. In China, they've got BYD, an electric automaker that is really becoming hugely important, hugely dominant. There are a bunch of other electric car companies in China, another very strong place for Tesla, where it's under a lot of threat. You look in the U.S., you've got this issue of the politicalization of the brand, but also a market that is struggling with the idea of the adoption of the EV, government incentives going away, effectively making them more expensive here in the next few months. So the idea that the second quarter that deliveries were down, that's very troubling. I think a lot of investors are expecting it to get even worse.
Do you think the shareholders are putting pressure on Elon Musk, Tim? Because, of course, it's quite obvious that he was a controversial figure in the last 6 months. We saw Tesla's being lit on fire. We saw him heavily involved in Donald Trump's cabinet. He became controversial in every way possible, and we saw the direct result of that in Tesla. So I wonder if shareholders have said, okay, you've got to stop with the politics. Of course, he's announced this America Party. We haven't heard much of it since he announced it and he registered it. But I wonder if shareholders have said, look, is there any way you can hold off from continuing politics, from continuing going forward with this America Party?
It's one of those things where Elon Musk has not been 100% focused on Tesla from the get-go. When he became CEO, he's already the CEO of SpaceX, his rocket company. You can't say that he hasn't been dedicated to the company over the years. I mean, he was sleeping on the factory floor at various points. He was all in on those two companies, but kind of since some of those early days and most recent years, he's just added to the portfolio, whether it is his tunneling company or his brain chip computer company or the acquisition of Twitter turned X, and now most recently XAI, his artificial intelligence company, which merged with X, and then politics, right? And under a lot of pressure earlier this year to start spending more time at Tesla, the board clearly wanted that to happen. Investors wanted that to happen. It wasn't just his contentious nature or his embrace of division. It was kind of his attention span and, his being distracted at a time where the company is at this kind of pivotal crossroads. He put it on a path, a kind of a bet the company path with this change to robotics, and you need a CEO who's there driving that. And clearly Musk was under pressure to return to the day-to-day, if you will, there at Tesla, if you can call what his schedule is, a day-to-day. And, in the moments in time when he was signaling to the market that he was going to be becoming more engaged back in Tesla, investors really rewarded that with the stock. There was a lot of excitement about it. And then we saw kind of around the kind of early June, as he started re-engaging in the idea of kind of continuing these political fights with the Trump administration, really concerned with the stock price falling, investors voicing concerns about, well, wait a second, aren't you going back? So there is this worry that he's going to get distracted again in politics, and reportedly SpaceX is warning investors about that potential as well. You're not, the boards know, investors know they cannot put Musk in a box. They cannot chain him to the desk, and that's the dilemma that they are in. The board at Tesla is, how do you capture Musk's attention? How do you keep him engaged at the company? It has been an issue they have been dealing with for many years. You go back to that massive pay package that they gave him, and that the board has said over and over, and we know from hearing from board members over the years that it was created with the hope of keeping Musk engaged in Tesla to kind of reach these heights. And in some ways, it was a massive, risky package. The idea that he had to achieve some milestones that people at the time thought not possible, and he did. And as you recall, a judge in the U.S. Struck down that package. Tesla shareholders were asked to reapprove it. Last year they did, and it's been struck down again. It's in limbo during appeals, and this is clearly on Musk's mind. He talked about it. He was asked about it yet again during the earnings call, and he's hoping that this can be addressed. Because it's not just the last few years that he feels like he hasn't been paid for, but it's going forward, keeping him involved. He wants a larger ownership share in Tesla, he says, because he wants to be protected from activist investors and that sort of thing. Last time I checked, I think his ownership share is something like 13% of Tesla. He wants it around something like 20%, something like that, so he can block activist investors, but and that's kind of the goal. And so this is hanging in the air, just one of the other dramas around the company. And, in some ways, it's pretty gutsy of an employee to be like, hey, I haven't been showing up to work on a regular basis, but I want a massive raise, right? But investors want to take care. It seems as investors want to do this because they want to bet on Musk, and that is the kind of the issue here with the Tesla, the valuation, is there's this huge premium. It's the Elon premium in the stock that they are betting on Musk's ability to pull this future off. It is not clear that the bench behind him, there's the leadership ability there. Now, there's smart people at Tesla, but he has churned through so many executives over the years that they don't have kind of the strong bench that is there necessarily to take over for him. And if he was gone, I think a lot of investors would be really spooked about what's there.
Well, an investigative journalist told LBC today, Tim, he said that Elon is the emperor and nobody dares to question him. I thought that was really interesting in conjunction with the fact that, as you mentioned, Bloomberg was reporting that SpaceX had told their investors that there is a risk factor with the potential of Elon Musk returning to politics. So it's almost like, I wonder, because he, as you said, they're betting on Elon Musk, I wonder if he doesn't really care. If he's like, well, you're with me or you're without me, I'm going to find investors, I'm going to find shareholders that want to bet on me regardless of my politics, regardless of what I involve myself in.
He's essentially said that. There's been several interviews over the years in recent times where essentially it was kind of set up to him like, hey, man, you might lose business if you keep on this path. And he says he doesn't care, right? He is going to speak out his mind. He's a very principled person in some ways. Like, the way he sees the world is can oftentimes be black or white. And for good or bad, he is going to stick with what he believes is right. That is very powerful when it comes to the creation of Tesla. The idea, the self-confidence that electric cars were the future. There were a lot of people early on who did not believe that was the future, thought that was crazy, and yet he pushed through. The belief that rockets should be reusable to get into outer space. There were a lot of people who thought that was just crazy. Like, why is this even important, right? These are just the whims of some rich guy in California who made money on the internet early on, right? But this self-belief, this belief that he was right, that he could change the world with his technology, has been proven correct. I mean, think of the world now that we live in large part, has been reshaped by these beliefs of Musk. But the flip side of that is he has a hard time at times, clearly, listening to people who are in his best interest saying, man, this isn't going to work. And I've asked him about that in the past. And, people tell him this is not going to work all the time. And in some ways it fuels that chip on his shoulder, but other times it can lead to real trouble. And you're spot on with Tesla. He has pushed, and you look at his private companies. He wants investors who believe in what he's going to do. He wants those for the long term. He's building for the long term. And at this point in Tesla, if you're an investor, you know what you're getting here with this back for. You're taking a huge bet. It's not really a surprise that he has all these other jobs. Now the question is, I think sometimes fear of like how real or how close is this technology that he's promising, and he would say, that he can be out wrong on the timing of stuff. He's like, he likes to go talk about the story when he was a kid and his brother had to like set the clock or tell him when the bus was coming early because he was always going to be late, right? I mean, this is like a guy who's perpetually missing his own self-imposed deadlines. But the gamble and the belief of his supporters is that he always comes through. He doesn't always come through. There's been lots of things he's said is going to happen that haven't happened. But when he does land it, it's a huge deal, right? The Model 3, the Model Y, opening a factory in China. These were huge milestones and breakthroughs for Tesla. And now this idea of robots, of robot cars, the ability to launch in Austin while it was massively delayed, is still a big deal. It is a pivotal moment for the company. The question is, can it go beyond just really a small area in the world to becoming kind of a thing that's scalable? And then, he's got all these ideas about humanoid robots. We can just even put those aside. I think people are really excited about that. But if he can just deliver on the idea of robot taxis at huge scale, that would be big.
He does approach everything well. The proof is in the pudding, and I guess you should follow him on his word. But yeah, it's a matter of when he delivers. Tim Higgins, thank you so much for joining the Tech Report today.
Well, thank you.